Hi, Cyril. How are you? I'm doing pretty good. Just going to give another minute or two to see if anyone else is going to join us, and then we'll get rolling here tonight. If anyone else is out there watching, make sure you join in on the chat because that's the only way I know who's out there. Introduce yourself. Let me know if you have questions. How am I sounding, Cyril? Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Good to know. I can't really hear myself because then you'd hear an echo, so. Why can't you enable your speakers? I have no idea. Are you getting an error message? Okay, you can hear me. Are you asking if there's a way I can hear you? I think with this kind of live streaming, it's just one way. So I can read what you're typing in the chat, but there's no way for me to let you talk. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is then. It's just like a one-way webinar. Perfect. I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out and help me test all of this. I'll do some more webinars in the future where I give people like warning that they're happening. For this one, I didn't want to tell too many people because I didn't even know if it would work at all. So we're figuring this out together. I see someone else has joined us. If you don't mind jumping in the chat and just introducing yourself, that would be awesome. And Cyril, I know you know quite a bit about Read&Write already because you've been using it. Is there anything in particular you'd like me to go over tonight since you're here? And same with whoever else is watching, let me know. Okay, that's a good question. So Cyril's asking specifically for EQAO, how students will open the file, and specifically for math, how it will work. So let's do that. And you could do this with your students to practice as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a practice test from the EQAO website. And hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay, hopefully the window's big enough. And I'll just use grade 3 as my example, but it would be the same with grade 6 as well. Awesome. So I'm on the page on the EQAO website where they have all the different practice booklets. And if you go down to alternative formats, there's one right here that says Mathematics Optimized Document for Read and Write Chrome extension, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just going to click on it, and it forces you to make a copy, which is perfect. So I make a copy. And now because I've opened it, it's saved in my Google Drive, which is awesome. And then for students to get access to it, that's going to be through Google Classroom. So I'm just going to make a classroom real quick. And this is exactly what will happen for the real test as well. And then it gets added as an assignment to the classroom. So I just attach that file from my Google Drive, add it. Yes, yeah. So your ISSP team will have been trained on how to do this, and they should be doing this. Classroom teachers shouldn't have to do this themselves, but if you wanted to practice, you could do this. And then if you're not sure about how your school's organizing it, I would check in with your ISSP team. And importantly, right here, after you add a file, I made a copy for each student. Okay, so I'm just gonna call it math. I don't have to put anything else. And then I'm gonna assign it. You have to set it up for them. Well, that's interesting. That's not what happens in most schools, but it's up to every school how they coordinate it. So as long as that's what you've all decided, then that's more than fine. But like I said, ATRTs have been going around and doing a lot of training. So there should be people in your school that can support you in this. So you're right, each file will have to get the package student ID put into it. So I have this all set up now, but there's no students in the classroom. So maybe you could pretend to be a student for me. And what I'm going to do is just switch the students tab and show this Google Classroom code. And if you mind just popping open a new tab so you don't lose me here in the live stream, but if you could join that classroom, then you can see exactly what the students would experience. And then I'll have, excuse me, a file too to show you what happens. So if you're just tuning in and notice someone else joined, Cyril asked a question about how EQAO will work with Read and Write for Google Chrome. So we're just kind of walking through a mock math EQAO booklet of how that will work. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat and I will get to them once we're done this. All right, so I can see, Cyril, that you've joined. Your name shows up there, which is perfect. So on your screen, you should be able to click on the math assignment and open up the book. And then I don't expect you to actually do the test. And then just hit the turn in button on the top of your screen to hand it in as if you're done. So I can, as you're working on it, I can actually see your copy of the test from my computer as the teacher. So as you're working on that, I can actually open up your file and add your package ID to it. My mouse is acting up right here. There we go. So just in the header, I can, whatever your package ID is going to be, I can look at your barcode and put that in there. And then as long as I put it in the header, it's going to show up at the top of every page. So just on your screen and about right here on the toolbar, you'll see a button that says Turn In. So just click on that. There, and then on my screen, all of a sudden it switched you from being not done to done. So I know you're completely finished. So at that point, I could print it out and do the rest of the process. There's a bit more to the process as far as unsharing it from the student and backing it up and then making sure it's deleted after the fact. And I'm not going to go through all of that right now. But definitely reach out to your ATRT or to your ISSP team for the full set of instructions as far as that goes. So yeah, that's that. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Great. Let me know if you have any other questions. So for those of you that are watching this maybe later or whatnot, I will just introduce myself officially to let you know who I am. I'm Erica. I'm an assistive technology resource teacher. This is a brand new role in Peel this year. So there is one of us assigned to every school on the board. So I do all of the Noble superintendency. But if you're not in my superintendency, there is somebody else just like me assigned to your school as well. Cyril says, the behind the scenes will be a lot of work, I can see. ISFC team has some work to do. Yes, they do. And that's always been the case. There's a lot of coordinating and organizing to make that run smoothly. And absolutely, we're here to support them as well. But for sure, it's a lot of work. But hopefully this process will be a lot smoother than, using Kurzweil or using other things in the past has been. So we'll see how it goes. We used it already for OSSLT and it worked really well. So I'm confident it'll be good for EQAO. And as I mentioned already to Cyril, this is totally a test tonight. I'm just playing around with YouTube live streaming and seeing how it works for a webinar. So do let me know if you have any feedback or suggestions or whatnot. I'm more than open to them. And this is super interactive. As you can see already, Cyril and I went over something that I hadn't even planned on talking about, but that's more than okay. I really just have a very, very loose plan and I'm totally open to whatever it is those of you watching want to know. This is tied into Peel's EML vision. And my hope is that by using assistive technology, you're going to create things all your students can use, but it's really going to give those students a voice who may struggle with traditional text on paper. So yeah, we're going to just go over a few tricks for things that can work, but do interrupt me with questions. Cyril, if you have more, throw them at me. Seems like you're the only one talking in here, so feel free, fire away. So one thing I did want to show is converting files. You may have files that you created in the past, maybe with Word, and it's actually not too bad to convert it over to a Google Docs format. So I'm just going to upload a random file I found online, not something I created, so I can't take credit for it. So all I've done so far is just dragged and dropped it into this window, and it's uploading to my Google Drive. And now that it's here, I can right-click on it and go to Open with Google Docs. and it's going to take that Word file and automatically turn it into a Google Doc file for me. So there we go, it's already a Google Doc file. Once in a while, depending on how it was formatted initially, it may have a few things that you need to fix. Like, see how this question goes on the next page, you might want to kind of adjust that. But one thing in particular I wanted to show is right here, this is actually a picture. So whoever created this worksheet didn't type this in, they've, captured it from some kind of print worksheet. But when I right click on it, I can go to Save to Keep Notepad. And that's going to upload it to my Google Keep. And something that's really cool about Google Keep so here it is, that same picture right from my document. But if you click this little more link, the 3 dots at the end, you can grab the image text. And it's going to scan that picture for you. And instead of you having to retype all that information, it just grabs it. So you have it. So now I can pop back over to my document. I can refresh my Google Keep notepad, and there's all of that text right there. And I can just copy and paste it from here. Now, of course, the formatting's not quite right. I'd have to fix it, but that saves you from having to retype things. Yeah, it's not a very commonly known feature of Google Keep, but it's super handy. So, just with the little reformatting, I'm not going to do it all right now, but you can see how that would save you some time. So then same thing from there, you could use Google Classroom to distribute out to students, make a copy for each student, and then they're able to use Read and Write right from there. So for those of you that might not know, Read and Write is this purple puzzle piece. It shows up on the web. It shows up here in G Suite, the Google set of tools. Right now I'm in Docs. And, at its simplest, you can just put your cursor wherever you want it to read and press play.
Solar system test. 1. Which 2 planets have a retrograde rotation?
It's going to go through and read it for you. For students, if you are, doing a short answer question, they can use word prediction, and it's going to help them spell and type, which is great. You can also use talk and type, which listens to what you're saying and then writes it for you, which is great too. Another thing not a lot of people notice is after you use talk and type, a couple of these words have been underlined with a gray dotted line. And that's because it's not 100% sure that it heard you properly. And you can right click on any of those and it offers alternative suggestions. So kids often get frustrated when using talk and type because it's not understanding them well. Tell them to speak their whole sentence so it hears the full context of what they're saying, and point out this gray dotted line thing. Because you can easily fix things rather than, just deleting it all and starting over. So another thing that's one of my favorites about Read and Write is the vocabulary list builder. So I'm just on a website, and let's say I need to pull some vocabulary words out of here. Whatever my key vocab is, I can just highlight the words. And then once I'm done, I can click this button right here. It's vocabulary list builder. And it automatically takes all the words you've highlighted, puts them into a Google document for you. For some reason tonight, my symbol feature is not working. Usually it loads a picture there. And for some reason, they're not coming up tonight. But typically, you'd have a picture under the symbol column as well. And then from there, you can, completely edit the document. If there's too many definitions, you can narrow them down. You can change notes to something else. You know, whatever you want, and then you could share that document with students or even have them make their own, which is really handy. Another feature that works very similarly to that is if students are using this as a tool to do some inquiry or research, and they're, you know, finding key information, they can highlight pieces of their research. They can even use different colors for different things if they want to color code what they're looking up. And then when they're done with this particular article, they can click Collect Highlights. And it pulls in everything that they've done and even links right back to the source, which is really handy because if they're looking at this later, they might forget where they found that information. So those are really my favorite features of Read and Write, just keeping it simple. There are other things here too that you won't use as frequently. Something like screen mask, you probably don't always need, but it helps students focus as you read. And this is pretty new that they actually have a lot of settings to it now. So you can change the colors, and you can change the opacity, and the size of the reading light. So if you have those students that really need that guidance to follow along, it can be helpful. So yeah, that's about all I planned on, unless you have any more questions for me, Cyril. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out and, you know, help me test this, make sure the sound's working and all those things. And then now I know I can actually plan one for the future. Very welcome. Anytime. Good. I'm glad you picked up a couple of things. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. Again, thank you so much for joining in, and I'll let you know the next time there'll be another webinar.